Hey guys, hope everyone is doing well tonight. Let's talk about public smoking. So, did you know that smoking overall, talking in the past 60 years, has decreased by over 60%? That's an insane number. You're thinking, wow, like why should this even be a problem? Smoking has been decreasing, and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention is predicting that in 2020 about 18% of adults will be still smoking versus the other 82%, and about 12% of current students versus the 88% will still be smoking, and that number will just keep going down, down, and down. However, that's just talking about cigarette smoking. As you may know, there are other forms of smoking, like there's hookah, there are e cigarettes, there are vape pens. Oh my goodness. The fact that they sell these openly is ridiculous. I think they really need to stop that. So, why I'm mentioning this, public smoking is something I believe should be banned in all areas. I believe that we need to have stricter laws when it comes to no smoking areas. Now, personal story, knew I actually knew a person. Unfortunately, he passed away because of lung cancer, but that was because it was aggravated by secondhand smoke. Secondhand smoke is a very, very deadly effect that comes from public smoking. You see, there are the people who smoke the vape or hookah or cigarettes or whatever they may be smoking from, and then there are other people who are just walking by, have no business in smoking. They're just, they're in public. They just happen to be exposed. And unfortunately, with this man I knew, he was only like 6 years old. He passed away to lung cancer, and we were oblivious. His family were like, he's never smoked a day in his life. How come he has lung cancer? Turns out it was secondhand smoke. And secondhand smoke is a very, like I said before, it's a very deadly effect. And I will be talking more about what it can cause, how many people it has harmed in the U.S. alone. Imagine imagine after I mention how many people have been affected by secondhand smoke in the United States. Imagine how much more it's affected in the world. I will also talk about ways that we can further prevent public smoking from becoming a common thing. And I will also be describing how we can further promote more people into reducing their when it comes to them smoking in public, reducing that all the way down, minimum, hopefully down to a zero. Secondhand smoke is known to cause cancer, like I've said before. It has more than 7,000 chemicals, including at least 70 that can cause cancer. Crazy amount of chemicals. And the fact that there's at least 70 of them that can cause cancer, well, that's just a minimum point. Who knows how many of the other over 7,000 contribute? Secondhand smoke does cause lung cancer even in people who've never smoked. There is also some evidence suggesting that it might be linked to adults with other forms of cancer, especially the ones in the larynx, which is your voice box, the pharynx, your throat here, nasal sinuses, your brain, bladder, rectum, stomach, and breast. Alright, now secondhand smoke causes about 7,330 deaths from lung cancer and a whopping 33,950 deaths from heart disease each year. That is in the US alone. Now, between 1964 and 2014, 2.5 million people died from exposure due to secondhand smoke, according to a report from the US Surgeon General. The report also concluded that secondhand smoke is a definitive cause of a stroke. Now, there are no risk-free level of exposures. Unfortunately, once you're exposed to it, you're exposed to it. There's either a you can't get exposed to it or you're definitely exposed. Even someone like me walking, like, I go to school, I go to work, I go to the mall, I go pretty much anywhere that's public. I'm still exposed to secondhand smoke, you know? Not just me. Millions of people my age, millions of people way older than me, even young children are exposed to this. Secondhand smoke contains hundreds of chemicals known to be toxic or carcinogenic, including formaldehyde, benzene, vinyl chloride, arsenic ammonia, and hydrogen cyanide. Now, I did take a chemistry class. Those are not happy chemicals that you want in your body. I know I don't want them. For sure, you would not want those in your body. Now, secondhand smoke can cause heart attacks. Even relatively brief exposure can trigger a heart attack, according to a report by the Institute of Medicine. Now, I did mention that secondhand smoke is especially lethal for young children. So, secondhand smoke is responsible for between 150 to 300,000 lower respiratory tract infections in infants and children under 18 months of age, which results in between 7,500 to 15,000 hospitalizations each year. That is a crazy amount of hospitalizations that honestly could be reduced by a lot. It also causes 430 sudden infant death syndrome deaths in the US annually. Secondhand smoke exposure can also cause a buildup in fluid in the middle ear, which results in almost 800,000 doctor's office visits per year, as well as more than 202,000 asthma flare ups among children each year. I have family with asthma. I have close friends of mine with asthma. You know, when I think about them and when I think how common public smoking is, it's a fearful thought. You're thinking, wow, like even the slightest bit can trigger that asthma attack that they have, that they unfortunately might have to go through. And more than 24 million, that's about 37% of the US, have been exposed to secondhand smoke. Now, this secondhand smoking issue, when it relates to public smoking, that reminds me a whole lot about our ozone layer and how it's being broken down. Actually, I think it's pretty much almost completely destroyed, and it's because of these CFCs and all the excessive smoke. That's what damages that ozone. That's the reason why skin cancer rates are increasing and our crops are being damaged. So that's what public smoking is doing. You're exposing more and more people to secondhand smoke. More and more of those people, even if they haven't touched a cigarette in their life, they get heart attacks, they get asthma attacks, they get all sorts of these problems that they shouldn't really have. This is a big problem at work, other public places like malls, like clubs, like doctors' offices, school, libraries, hotels, you name it. So the solution, there have been many solutions proposed for this. I think I personally believe one of the strongest solutions is you really need to reinforce those smoke-free policies at work and at those other public places. People should try to opt for smoke-free options when it comes to going to public areas. Like, why my family and I took a vacation to Chicago a couple years ago, and when we went to our hotel room, we specifically requested for a smoke-free room. There are options like that out there. And also, businesses that do not have a no smoking policy, they need to be reinformed how dangerous secondhand smoke is. And speaking of, Schoolcraft actually implemented their no public smoking in this summer 2016, which I think that was a great initiative on that part, and I really hope that they continue to reinforce this, because it's secondhand smoke is just so damaging. And to not be able to say over and over again, like, this is why we should not have public smoking, that is something that I think really needs to be uh, that really needs to be discussed a lot further, not just at Schoolcraft, but in a lot of other public areas that all of us have exposure to. Public smoking is something that we all need to recognize is it does more harm than good. Not just to the person smoking the cigarette, vape, whatever they may be smoking from, not just to that person, but to everyone else that might be exposed to it. You know, a lot of people like to argue that, oh, I have a freedom to smoke, or oh, it helps me release my stress. You know, that point is seen. However, you could always relieve your stress in many other ways that don't harm another person. We have too many people who end up in the hospital or end up even dead because they get all these respiratory infections, all these brain damage, circulation issues, nerve issues, you name it, because of secondhand smoke. You know, I see these signs all the time about no smoking. Doesn't matter if I'm at my dermatologist office, my eye doctor office, my pediatrician's office. You could even ask them, like, oh, what happens if I just smoke once? There's so much that could be affected, whether it's your eyes being affected, your skin, bones, circulation, digestion system, nervous system, all the other systems in your body. And of course, what's the other option? All of them, all of what I just mentioned could be affected. So this is why I am stating over and over again, and I clearly stand with this. Public smoking should not be allowed anywhere. We need to work to reduce how often, or at least how many businesses do not have a no smoking policy, and we need to clearly reinforce the dangers that public smoking can bring. Thank you for listening.